Welcome. You're listening to My Magical Horse, the podcast, where we are getting curious about animal communication. I am your host, Jordan Banks, and if you are desiring a more magical connection with your own horse, you are in the right place. Join us as we rediscover our sense of wonder, experience the joy, and feel the magic that horses can and do bring to our lives each and every day. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you for spending your time with us. Now let's get started. Welcome back to My Magical Horse, the podcast. Today I am excited to introduce Joelle Decker. Joelle is an animal communicator living in Montana now, but she used to be local. And I met her because she had donated an animal communication reading to our Lower Puget Sound Dressage Club auction and fundraiser, and I bid on it. And so to be honest, I was a little bit unsure, a little bit, I want to do this, but I'm not really sure if I'm ready. But I went ahead and did it, and I found it. I have it was lot number 22 for a session with Joelle. Welcome, Joelle. How are you today?
Good. That's actually funny. 22 is like my number if I chose a number.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I was just last night trying to see if I could find this and see if I could find my notes from our our set or the session that we did. We actually did two sessions, but the first session was, I think, the most impactful. It had a lot of information. And I looked it up. It was February 9th, 2019. So today's February 2nd, 2025. So like almost 6 years ago, like really close. Like that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a week difference. Anyway, I just wanted to bring you on because you were the first experience that I had actually using an animal communicator, and I thought it would be fun to bring you on and kind of see how things are different now than when they were when I met you. But if you want to just give a little introduction, I mean, I'll ask you more specific questions as we go, but if you want to just give a little introduction about how you became to be an animal communicator, like what that looked like for you. Like, did you always feel like you could communicate with animals, or was that something that came a little later? Yeah, just talk a little bit about what your journey looked like getting to where you are now.
For sure. So I've always had animals in my life. In the home we had cats growing up. But we had horses, and that was been my main love as fellow horse girl, you understand.
Yeah.
My dog just came up to me and was like, "Hey, what about me?"
Because I
Yes.
want to be in the interview too.
Yeah, he's a perfect angel. Um, But he's my first dog I've ever had. Finally at 33, I got a dog.
Wow.
And he's a part of my soul. I mean, as a horse person, of a heart horse, like this is my heart dog. I
Hmm.
don't know how I ever lived without him. Um, but besides Remy, so I grew up riding horses. I started when I was 4, in Port Orchard, where Lower Puget Sound Dressage Club is kind of based. And my mom rode. And so for my 4th birthday, I wanted to ride horses. And so I went and had a little pony ride at Clover Valley, and it didn't stop riding. Just lesson after lesson, and got into 3-day eventing. And I think I was around 11-ish, 11, 12. It's doing a 3-day event at Donida Farm, and this lady, Joan Ranquet, was there um, doing animal communication. And so she came and did my horse and my sister's horse, and spot on with so many things that how would she know if she didn't know your horse? And then she had also come to the barn and before Grand Farms out in, it's still there, Vaughn, Washington, and did a bunch of horses there. So that
Do you
was,
remember what year that was that you met her at Denida? Any idea?
well, it was the Young Rider Benefit Horse Trials for Area 7 was still there. Um, so I'm 33 now, and I think I was like 12.
Oh wow. 12.
So back up. that many years.
So 21 years ago,
Yeah, in the
if I can do math.
2004-ish then,
Okay.
around that time. Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause my sister was still writing and she stopped in 2005. So about 2003, 2004 is probably the time frame.
Okay. Wow.
Mhm.
I was just curious because I also wrote out at Donida, so I'm kind of just curious where all this,
Were you
where
there at
was
the
I?
same
Where was I when this was happening?
time? Yeah, she just had a little booth and was set up with some vendors, and we're like, sure,
That's
let's have
fun.
her talk to my pony and why she hates cross country.
Oh, that's, oh,
Um,
really?
I mean, that was my main reason is that she was a perfect pony in all ways that a kid could ever ask for. Um, except for I was trying to do eventing because that's what my barn did, and she did not like ditches and down banks. And for her, the ditches, because she couldn't see inside, you know, dark space, understandable for a prey animal. And then also down banks, not knowing what was, down banks like this, not knowing what was right here. And
Mm.
so what Joan told me to do and help alleviate this issue was that when I'm going up to it, and then also in your cross country course walk, is to visualize you and your horse going over it, and then for this pony to show her in my imagination mind's eye what was actually right there, and that it's just wood. There's just some wood planks. Nothing's out there to bite you. And that made her jump them after that. So that's
So it
something I
helps.
share with my clients who have spookier horses too, is to imagine you riding it smoothly, or horses that are hotter. Um, Even if hotter to just trotting over trot poles, is to imagine them doing it nice and smooth, peacefully. And then that also makes the person calm down too. And I think a lot of the time they get up here, they're or out here, they're not in their bodies. And then that amps the horse up, and then it's a cycle of anxiety, anxiety. So bring it
Totally.
down, big, deep belly breaths is what I kind of tell a lot of people. And in my experience with jumping hotter horses and doing that, focusing on your breathing and you staying grounded and focusing your energy like in your heels, so you're here with them and with their center of gravity, it does help slow them down and their mind and the body to be able to have the nice rhythm that you want instead of the speed racer.
Yeah.
um, so anyways, I met Joan, so that's how I came across animal communication. I didn't really think about it at all, except for I think I was around 13. There was a horse where my pony lived that had some dry water. There wasn't water in there. The buckets were dry. And so I went to go fill them up. And if any, there was something that talked to me, and that horse, I swear, said thank you. And I was just flabbergasted, like, wait, what did you just say?
Like
Um,
you heard the word, like you feel like you
Thank
heard the
you.
word.
Yeah, very clear, night and day. And that kind of threw me for a loop, not, and then didn't really, think much of it. But it was a small moment, but also one of those like defining moments that I think people have
Hmm.
throughout their life. So that was kind of a big deal, not a big deal to me. And then go on a bunch of years. I graduate college, and I wanted to work with horses, not really sure how. And so I went to do the Northwest School of Animal Massage. And at the time, it was in Redmond. I think it's on Vashon Island now. And I went through that program at the level 100, and I wanted to be able to know what the animals were actually feeling in their body. And I remembered Joan Ranquet doing animal communication. And so I looked her up, and I saw that she had just started, it was a newer program, North or Communication with All Life University is what she was calling it at the time. And it took about 4 years to go through it. There was a lot of calls at the time Zoom didn't exist, or maybe it did, but we just did like telecalls and practicing on each other's animals quite often. And then we had to do in person 5-day seminars at her place in Carnation. And did we do like 4 or 5 of those? And so I signed up for that. I didn't continue my massage school because I'd have to do another 100 hours. I just gotta drop that.
So you just
Maybe I'll go
focused on
back.
the animal communication,
Yeah,
the communication with
yeah.
all life in university. I think she still calls it
Mhm.
that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know she's still teaching. I think that's all she's doing is teaching. I'm not sure if she does straight sessions anymore.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that's still the name. Uh,
Yeah. So it took you 4 years to get to go through it?
yeah, because she had certain requirements about having to do a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of these in-person seminars.
Okay.
And she only held them so often. And so I did
Gotcha.
as many as I could as, and there was, yeah, I forgot how many, but it took that long to kind of go through the program. And something that was interesting in that was that every new person that came to animal communication, it was amazing to see they always got something accurate. We would bring photos of our animals, past and current animals and even ones that have been deceased. There was a whole seminar on just death, dying, and lost. Um, and because that's another thing that I think most animal communicators do. Animals that have crossed over. In a way, it's easier to communicate with them
Really?
because they don't have all of, I guess the ties, the entanglements to their body and maybe entanglements with their human's energy anymore. And they're
Hmm.
really in a freer state. They don't blame a lot of the times humans come with the guilt of I did this to my animal or I feel bad, making the right decision or whatnot. And they don't harbor any. I haven't come across an animal that's like, oh, you did this to me. No, it's pure just appreciation and gratitude for the experience, that was
Wow.
shared. And especially with a human that is coming to an animal communicator, like there was a lot of love there. It's not like
Yeah.
an abusive relationship. Um, so yeah, that's how I came to animal communication, went through that program.
Did you feel like, how long, I guess, into the program did you feel like, yeah, I'm doing it? Or did you have any doubts, along the way?
Oh, yeah. As humans, they love to have their doubts and worries, and gotta kind of let go of those in general. But when I was younger, I think 20 when I started, and then also going through a lot of awakening self-realization. That was also been parallel with my path of animal communication. And the more that I've become more self-aware and grounded in my own body and I guess self-realized, then the easier it is to do animal communication. It's not necessarily the easy, but it's more just it's right there.
Mm.
Um,
Like
the
you don't have to
information
try
is
so hard for it. Like,
or it's more just allowing it. I wouldn't allowing and trusting yourself. And I think that's also what comes to most people in animal communication is just trusting the information that comes. I would say it's more the second guessing. I would always say what came through and the client would be like, okay, that's accurate, that's my animal. And then but you come with maybe a background of like doubts and the not good enough and self-worth things that you would second guess yourself in the situation where all involved, the animal and the other human were like, oh, this was a great experience, but in a way you're still like second guessing not the information but I guess your own self-worth.
Mm.
I'm kind of dissecting this as I think about it. Um,
What do you think was the hardest? Okay, in those 4 years of
yeah.
all the things that you did, what was the hardest thing for you?
Um,
And then maybe contrast what was the easiest thing for you. What was the hardest thing? What was
yeah, I think, well, the easiest was probably connecting with animals who had passed over, and that was the most surprising that that would be easy. And then continue on in my adulthood, I've worked with hospice and
Mm.
death and dying people, and it's, I don't know, maybe I just have a connection with death and dying or the other side. Um,
Yeah.
and the hardest was, yeah, I mean, just being grounded in my own self.
Mm.
Um, and dropping, nowadays, I just kind of, as a physical thing, I'll like snap my fingers and then just,
Mm.
okay, drop all intellect. Because that's what gets in the way is the intellect and all of this, the doubt, the overthinking. Um, And the other thing too is if you believe in past lives, and a lot of people that kind of come to this work and speaking up, they maybe have had other lives where they spoke up and it, got him back.
Mm. Right.
So going through a lot of fears and belief systems and unraveling that from other lives. So in a way, the animal communication was and has been a catalyst for just becoming a more whole person. Um,
Mhm.
and
I feel you on that because I feel like I'm in that space right now where I'm trying to unravel my own limiting beliefs, my own self-doubt, the totally I've done like a number of different I haven't done a 4 year thing like you did, but I've done a number of different classes with different communicators just trying to get my feet wet. And yeah, every single time I'm always just like, oh my gosh, how do I know I'm not just making this up or whatever, like
yeah.
to just drop that, like you said, drop the intellect and not to question yourself. That's probably is the hardest piece. I mean, that's the part I'm struggling with the most right now.
And it's just doing it like anything, like riding a horse. Um, it's just doing it over and over again. And yeah, practice makes perfect. But then you realize, oh, I've done so many animals and where I feel the issue in their body. Oh, that's what the vet said. That's what we're working on. And I'm like, oh, your right hand is really stiff. That's what my trainer says. That kind of stuff. You're like, okay, I don't know these people or these horses. Why would I know that the horse has a left hock issue? Or this is something that's interesting is stifle injections. I
Mm,
can, it's like, okay, I can pinpoint the horse has a stifle issue, and then they will say, oh, they just got injected. And I think that the issue is the support around the stifle, that
mm.
those muscles don't get as much work and support. I don't know why. Maybe
Oh,
someone needed to hear that.
no,
Strengthen
that's
your
interesting because I
the
actually am
muscles that
working
support it.
I work with a horse right now who has had his right stifle injected a few times. It's actually looking pretty good right now. But interesting that you you brought up the stifle. I don't know. That's funny. Do you feel like when you're talking to people's animals, do you ever get, I don't know, insights on the people themselves, or are you, how does that?
Yeah, it really depends on the person and the animal and what needs to come through. Before every session, I make the intention of what needs to be heard, and said for the highest good of all concerned. So that, it has nothing to do with me. It wants to be what needs to be heard for this session. And sometimes things do come through for the people where it's a people problem and not an animal problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it'll come through if the person is ready to hear it. An example would be I had a session where the animal was really closed down. And the horse gave a little bit of info and it was fine. And then the next day, the horse came to me with a lot to say, and I asked her, where was this yesterday? And she said they weren't ready to hear this.
So like the horse reached out to you after your session?
I know, weird. Doesn't happen too often. It has happened a couple other times when they died. Um,
Mm.
one was that night they came to me and I was like, oh, I need to contact their owner tomorrow. And then she actually contacted me that next morning. And then the other one came to me in a dream when it died.
Oh, wow.
And
Interesting.
those two horses were horses I had talked to before.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was interesting about the one that did not want to share because their owner was not ready. And it was an interesting session where I was actually surprised that the person reached out.
Hmm.
Because it was, I think someone else kind of told them that they should do this. And
Oh.
I find that if someone is kind of pressured into it, then the animal is not as open as someone who is more open themselves, or the more open and clear the human's energy is in consciousness, the easier it is for the animal to come through, at least for me, and
Hmm.
them having lots to say, or if they're really happy, they don't always have so much to say, and it's more the people. Just, I think a lot of it, they're looking for, yeah, validation.
The
And
animals? Wait, are the people or the
the
animals?
people, the
Oh,
people.
oh, oh.
Yeah, and a lot of my sessions are that because they are good animal caregivers who you come to an animal communicator, they're
Right.
it's
You obviously care. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
They're looking to be better for their animal.
yeah,
And so a lot of the time, we'll do the reading and then it's just validation for them of what they were already feeling. And so that kind of goes into that everyone's already doing this.
yeah,
Just trusting yourself that you're
yeah.
already doing it. I heard this quote a long time ago, and someone said, I'm waiting for the whole world to actually realize that they're already psychic. You
Oh,
know,
wow. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
that's true. I mean, people,
Yeah,
it's just trusting your gut, trusting
yeah,
your intuition, trusting yourself. Um, and then yeah, going back to then that's all your belief systems and unraveling those to
yeah. Do
just
you, it's kind of just what you said some people don't, I don't remember how you worded it just now, but you just mentioned past lives. And I know from my religious upbringing that that is not something that my religion believes in, right? Um how how and I know you had talked about growing up Catholic. How has religion played into any of this for you? I guess I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's that's the story. So, growing up, grew up in the church. We did all the Catholic stuff, communion and whatnot. Went to Sunday school, and then when I was about 19-ish, I was in college. I had a lot of physical issues where I could only walk to class really, and it was like 20-minute walk from my dorm to class, and I was in so much pain. And through my mom's gym, she came across this amazing massage therapist, not with us anymore. Um, and I would go to his houses where he had his table, and he really helped me get back in my body and get everything realigned. And he was also a magic man, very spiritual, conscious. And he told me, I could feel your energy from when you come down the block. And he's like, you're an empath. And I had never heard that word before in my whole life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You can't feel my energy. I don't know. That's weird. But he would know exactly, I'd be laying on his table and he'd press right where the issue was, where the pain was. And I asked, how do you know this? And he's like, well, it just lights up. I know, like I can see the energy. And now
Wow.
doing this work, for me, that area just lights up where there's inflammation. I understand what he means by that now. Like inflammation in a horse or in
Yeah.
animal. And so he kind of took me under his wing and he said, if you want to come and do like spiritual lessons, then we can do that. And so I would come to his house and he would like teach me about, he taught me how to meditate. And I remember the first time I meditated, it was insane. I was on like an acid trip. And it kind of scared me that this could be a thing. He gave me a stack of meditation CDs, and then we would listen to these on tape, like a cassette tape, recordings of people or, yogis doing these crazy things of like teleporting and all sorts of things that I had never heard of. And just that's what was the catalyst of really opening my consciousness to something more. And then he gave me these books to read, The Life and Teachings of Masters of the Far East. I think it's a set of 6 books. And that is what really turned my world upside down, where they talked about actually like Christ consciousness and what that is. And it resonated so much with me that,
Hmm.
and it just made so much sense that, Christ isn't, because I was always told, like, Jesus Christ, he's your savior. You're not getting into heaven if you don't believe in this. And I don't know, I just kind of went along with it because that's all I knew, and
Right.
that's the people around me, that's what they believe too. So why not,
Right. That's
and
all
so
you knew.
I started reading these books and some other books that he gave me to read, and then telling my mom about it because I'm like, wow, there's this whole new world of spirituality. And so I think in the beginning she's like, nod your head and smile. Okay, that's cool. Um, and now she's totally open to anything and any weird thing that I have to say or whatnot. Uh, but yeah, it was a transition for sure. And so I had met him before, a couple years before I started Animal Communication with Joan. So I was already kind of open to something more or
That makes
broader
sense
belief
on the timing.
system.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and looking back, everything happens in the perfect order of your life.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah, do you want to tell the story about your mom's friend?
Oh, sure. So I guess the only large backlash I kind of had was my mom's friend and longtime family friend. She thought that it was the devil's work of what I was doing, and just because we knew her for a long time, that kind of hurt my feelings that she would think that something that I thought was full of love and connection was her belief system was opposite of that.
And
And
why do you think people that believe it's the devil's work, why do they believe that? Because my experience has been the same as I'm delving into this. It's like it's all so good. And yeah, you're connecting to God, you're connecting to get the highest and best outcome for all involved. Like, how can that be bad? I mean, that's what I've been trying to navigate as I was trying to break free of my own religious upbringing. Do you have any thoughts or insights on that?
I think it's just fear of the unknown.
Mm.
I mean, that's the only thing I can really think of. And, they've had these set of belief systems, and religion is very strong beliefs, and indoctrinated. And, as a kid, she grew up in that and just kind of, continued and whatnot. And that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
is maybe they'll have an experience that opens them up to something more. Um,
Yeah.
but
I was
yeah,
just curious because, like I said, that's been a big piece of me opening myself to just even let myself try to learn how to do it, you know? And
yeah.
it's taken a number of years really for me to start to just be like, okay, I'm gonna embrace this. But yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to touch on that.
I mean, it's something that you're already doing. Like you're a good horse woman.
Yeah.
You're already doing it. You're already reading the animals. And so it's just letting go of that it's a bad thing. I don't see how it's a bad thing when you're already doing it and
Yeah, right.
nothing happened. The
It's
world didn't
innately
end.
happening. Yeah. And Celeste and I actually talked about it in the last podcast episode, and she had mentioned, well, there's instances in the Bible where animals are actually talking.
Oh,
It's
you're
like,
right. Doesn't the snake talk?
yeah, that's what she
Garden
brought
of
up.
Eden?
And then she said, and also a donkey. She's like, it was already happening.
Oh, that's good to, come back
Yeah.
at with that.
Yeah. What do you feel like is your strongest Claire? Because I know you said the first time that you heard the horse say thank you, and that kind of threw you for a loop. Was that your strongest Claire for a while, or was it something else?
No, I would say I know that there's like five of them, and the feeling one
The
is
feeling.
my strongest one. That's why the hearing the voice, I was like, what? I mean, when I
Mhm.
do a session, I do hear words, if that
Mhm.
needs to come through or whatnot. But for me, it's the feeling, and that also has been a journey too of being in the world but not of it, because I am so in my feeling body and empathic, and so knowing what is mine and what is not, and so that is something also I've had to grow in grow into as I get older.
And you
And
mean
there was
like feeling versus knowing? Like you feel like you really feel things versus knowing, or is it or kind of the same?
I don't know, I could say I get a good sense of what they're feeling. And then the I don't the other thing with like it's really just telepathy is what I tell people, and everyone can do it. You did it
Mhm.
as babies before you learned how to talk. Um, and I think people are also kind of starting it again. I know that those telepathy tapes are out and getting widely popular, but so with telepathy, the information comes as like a concept, and it's just in one zoom. So
Mhm.
you get the, and that's the hardest part is then, okay, deciphering that whole concept and then into the English language. And so in a way, it's easier to communicate because you're like, oh, I totally get how you're feeling, and you just know why that horse feels that way about something. Um, but then
Then you have to translate it
transfer
for
the
the
feel, yeah, the
person.
feelings into words for the
Mhm.
human.
Mhm.
So I guess in a way it is a knowing. And then again, going back to just good animal husbandry and people who are good with animals, like they just know, you just know that, oh, this animal's not right. And a lot of the times that happens with, owners, and they know their horse, no, like no one else does. And they just know something isn't right. And maybe it's not quote unquote lame, or, it looks sound, but they know something is up. And they dive into that. And then trusting that. And then they find something of,
Mhm.
whatever that was. But
Hmm. I know that with the first session that you and I did, and this kind of, I'm just going to bring this up because what you had talked about, like sometimes horses don't have a lot to say. Like if they're happy, they don't have necessarily a lot to say, or if the owner isn't ready to necessarily hear something, they might not necessarily have a lot to say. But when we had our first session, I remember it was before Zoom or any, like we didn't have a recording of the session, so I was like desperately trying to write down notes. And I remember I think we started. I'm not sure who actually I have it right in front of me. I think we started with Xena. Yeah, we started with Xena. And you were talking so fast that I at one point asked you if you could slow down because I couldn't keep up with you. Because you were talking so fast and you're like, "Oh, like she's just talking that fast." And then I had to laugh later because that's who she is. She's a very high energy, like do it quick, like you know what I mean, like so I was laughing because then we did Ugo after her, And it wasn't nearly like I wasn't having trouble keeping up with you. It was just really funny. So anyway, I ended up taking like I have them in front of me right now. I actually have like 4 pages or three pages of notes from that session. And then I did a follow-up session with you in December. And then that my horses didn't really hardly have anything to say. Like they didn't have much to say. Like I think they said it all the first session. Does that happen much? Do you I mean, I know everything is going to be unique to people's situations, but how do your sessions usually look? Do people do one and then that's all they do, or do you work with people like kind of on a regular basis? And how does that look like? What does that look like?
Again, dependent. Some people like do one session and never hear from them again, or do a session and then hear from them 3 years later because something happened. Usually
Mhm.
something happened is why
Yeah.
once in a while, they'll get people that their friend told them about it, so they're interested of what their animal is feeling, if they have anything to say, or if they're happy. That's a big one. Is my animal happy? And but then there are some, I do mainly sport horses. And if a horse is going through like rehab or trauma stuff, then I might talk to them more frequently if there's these physical issues going on. Um, that's pretty common. And if they're ready to get back into work, or how things are feeling or progressing. And um, but yeah, I feel like most of the time people come to me because there's an issue.
Yeah, right. I know that in the communicators that I've been working with more recently, we delve into a lot of I guess what's going on with the horse because it's relating to what's going on with the human. Do you find that a lot?
Yeah. And a lot with dogs too,
Mm.
is that, they're the mirror of us, especially the ones that you're really connected with, both horse and dog. Then they will mirror the human's ailments, um,
Mm.
physical, emotional, that can definitely happen. I,
Yeah, yeah.
More common than not.
So
So
how
I
do
always
you
tell my dog that if I'm in a mood, I just tell him, this is mine. This is not yours. Don't take it on. This is not for you.
Okay.
Where a lot of the time people come to their animal for the comfort and oh, woe is me, like, you know, take all my pain, because they will. That's what
Oh,
they love you so much. You're you're everything to them. And so I just tell him, this is not for you. No. I tell him he's a free and sovereign being, and he is able to make, his own free choices. And as long as he wants to be here, I will be the best caregiver that I can. He's staring at
oh.
me.
Yeah, I have heard of that animals can take on stuff for us. I mean, even illness, so
Yeah,
that
I've seen it happen. And then the animal dies. I've seen that happen before. It's not great.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I had actually two dogs that both got cancer. And then had to like take a step back and go, "Oh my gosh, are they like taking on all this stuff so that I'm not getting sick?" You know what I mean? I mean,
Mm.
it's kind of deep, but I kind of believe that could be the case, stuff that I've been navigating. But they are little blessings. How would you say your business has evolved over the years? Like I know when we did it, I was just taking notes. Do you do stuff on Zoom now, or how do you do your sessions? Do you do them over the phone or?
Yeah, I still do them over the phone. I still do it the same.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Just
do
curious.
Zoom. And then mainly it's like, so yeah, over the phone and not so much in person. And I think that it's way easier to do it not in person too, because you're not seeing with your eyes like, oh, that horse is super skinny. Like, of course he feels this way or whatnot.
Mhm.
And that's the other thing too, is I don't ask for ages, just the name, gender, and a photo of them. And the photo doesn't even have to be recent, just whatever they have. And because that has happened where the horse They send me a photo of them like competing. So the horse is, at its prime, and then I feel how they're feeling and it's a complete wreck. So I'm like, okay, this is going on. And then they'll say, oh yeah. Or maybe like an example, they sent me a horse just a few years ago, and then I told them how they were feeling, and then she sent me the horse's current legs, and the fetlock is almost to the ground because of
Mhm.
DSLD. That's
Yeah.
the degenerative
DSLD, yeah.
one. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, thank you for like sending me the photo from years ago where I didn't have that preconceived notion of like this is what they should be feeling or what.
Right. Do you
And
want to be able to see the eyes in the photo? I mean, or what's the most
I don't
important thing about
care.
the photo?
I
Doesn't.
I could do it off a description because once it's
Mm.
like the human, comes and they want to connect, then it's kind of like the animal's already there. And
Mhm.
I don't know, the photo's just for fun.
I think you might have told me too when we had our session that it was like a triangle between me, you, and my horse. And because like
Mhm.
it was like my horse was answering questions, I think almost before I even asked them. Does that
Yeah.
is that normal?
Yeah. Yeah. Or I'll kind of like do a reading, see how the horse is feeling and whatnot. And a lot of the time, the question that the person came for is answered then.
Hmm.
Like the,
Interesting.
the, the animal already knows what we're here for, um,
Yeah.
in a
Huh.
way.
What's your do you have any particular stories, I guess, that you would want to share or that you could share about experiences that you've had with animal communication or how you've helped in certain situations?
I guess what comes to mind, talking about rehab stuff, is there was this horse who, um, according to the vets, this horse is like they should maybe put him down. He's never going to do anything again. And it was a leg injury. And I was like, no, the horse was willing to keep going. And he wanted to keep going. He wasn't ready to be done. And so the person went through all the processes that they could, and he came back to compete, like a meter.
Really?
And yeah, and so
And
that
they
was,
wanted to put him down originally? Is that
yeah, they're like, if you're lucky, he'll be like a pasture horse. He's
oh,
not gonna be anything more than that because it was pretty bad. And everyone, all the vets and fair, they're like, I don't know how this horse is doing this, how it made it through. So they, and sometimes they know, and then there's been some other cases where the horse is ready to go, and um the human in a sense just needs the validation like that this is the right thing to do. And
mm-hmm.
that's interesting too, is so some animals who they know they're on their way out, they kind of already leave their body. They just they feel like an animal who has already crossed over, just very at peace. And then you look at their current body and it's should not feel that way. But they've kind of already gone through the process and now their body's just here.
So they're
So I
just kind
think,
of waiting.
hmm
Hmm, interesting. What would you say to those who still aren't sure if animal communication is real?
that's
Do you
okay.
get
That's
many?
your belief system. It's something that I've had to just, you just have to be okay with that. You might be the weird person. You're gonna, and if someone is not wanting to believe your beliefs or perspective, then that's okay. And just being okay with it. And if they don't want to believe it, you can't force them. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I guess I just mean like, is there anything that you could tell them, I guess, to
Oh,
if they're like on the fence,
on
like
the
I'm not
fence.
sure if it's
Um,
real.
sorry. I had to think about that one. I guess it would be just because they have to experience it themselves.
Mm,
And so just, if they have an animal in their life, do you feel love? Do you feel that the animal has a connection with you? And I'm assuming they're probably going to say yes. And then like, okay, that's communication. You're communicating. It's an energy exchange. And
energy exchange, I like that. It very much,
already,
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
doing it. You don't have to have words or some huge, profound concept come to you or whatnot of what's going on, but you feel the energy and you know what that feels like in your own body, in your own heart. And so it's just, are you going to deny that? That the love
Right.
that you share, that connection with your animal? I think that, and with your, even if you're with a human that you share a connection with, like you're communicating your energy, or even if you don't share a connection, like you walk into a room and you feel that the air is, you feel something in the air, like, oh, it's uncomfortable. That's in its own way, this communication that we do with the animals, the nonverbal communication. You feel the energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're tuning
So,
into it.
hmm.
Definitely. Yeah. I know you mentioned the telepathy tapes, and it was so funny actually. You said that, and I was like, oh yeah, somebody else just brought that up to me the other day. But isn't that I haven't listened. Is it a podcast? I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, I haven't either. My husband's really into it, listening to it. And I heard it on Joe Rogan initially talking about it. But they're podcast tapes about autistic people and
Mm.
their whole way of communicating telepathy, and through telepathy. And then some of them communicate with their main caregiver, like their mom or dad, through telepathy. And from my understanding is that there's this place that they all meet. It's called the Hill. And they can
Oh,
meet there. And I guess there's like over 1,000 kids there now that are meeting in this realm of consciousness who are these autistic
wow.
kids. Um, and I guess talking about all of that.
That's fascinating. I'll have to check it out. I've heard, like I said, you mentioned it, and I just heard it like within this last week. So, what's your favorite thing about being an animal communicator?
I guess it's just like every time I do a session, a lot of the time it's a dose of love. It's like you get a
Mm.
little hit of love because you feel the love of the people with their animals or what their animal has for um, their people or life. Animals are very appreciative of
Hmm.
life, and kind of, I think if they had a main overall message, it would be to live without expectation.
Mm.
And because a lot of the time we come, especially horses, or you're competing and stuff, you come with a lot of expectation of how this ride should go, the show should go, and they don't have that. So they're and something my dog told me the other day is, so he's just happy all the time, and I'm like, Remy, why are you so happy? Like, we're nothing is happening, we're just sitting here. And he said, you don't need a reason to be happy. I was like, you know what, you don't. You can just be happy, just so.
That's beautiful wisdom. I love it.
I know, he's so smart.
Oh, that's so sweet. I understand the soul connection with your dog. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how have you, since you became a communicator and you went through all the things to, hone your skills, how does that look in your daily life with your animals?
Um, I would, yeah, because my husband asked me that. You just talking to Remy? I'm like, no, I'm not. Uh, it's having good energetic boundaries. So all
Mm.
of my neighbors have horses, and I'm not just talking to them. When a human comes to you for a session, they're giving you the permission to connect.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's, I guess, having like values in it of respecting others' energies and space. And so you just tune it out. Again, going back to knowing what's yours, what's someone else's. And at this point in my life, I think I have pretty good energetic boundaries and keeping my mind to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so no, I like sometimes his feelings become very strong, and my dogs, and I'll be like, okay, Remy. But most of the time, if I want to connect, it's a conscious connection with him, like what I do in a session.
Mm.
So,
So you're not just necessarily having conversations all day long with him, or
no, yeah, yeah.
just curious. Do you have horses now, or?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
I wish I did.
No
One day
worries.
I'll have them again in my life. They're the best.
Yeah, no worries. If you were going to tell our listeners to just one thing that they could do to help improve their own connection with their horse, what would you tell them to do?
To breathe.
To breathe?
Yeah, and whenever you're with your horse, just breathe. Breathe into your abdomen, and that will get you out of your head and really in tune with your horse. So right from the get-go, gotta tell people leave your stuff in the car, when you walk into the barn, because
Hmm.
they don't deserve that and they're gonna feed off of that. And animals are so, so sensitive, and humans are super sensitive too. They just don't realize it about how sensitive they are. And they're gonna pick up on all your stuff. And especially if you have, a horse that already is anxious or you got it off the track thoroughbred, they're fiery. And so coming with your stuff from your day job to the barn is not going to help having a nice, calm ride. So
Yeah,
it's on breathing. And then when you're focused on your breath, you can't think about anything else. You're not thinking about what happened around the water cooler at work because you're breathing.
that's good advice. I actually, when I'm teaching students, on that empathic thing, and I had about the same year, 2019, is when I was told that I was an empath, and I had never heard of that either. I was like, what? I don't, how do you know that? Like, how
Yeah.
do you know I'm an empath? Like, I don't know I'm an empath. Why do you know I'm an empath? But what I notice when I'm teaching like lessons is sometimes I will stop breathing. And then that's my reminder to remind my student to breathe because I feel like I stopped breathing because they stopped breathing. And so then I remind them like, don't forget to breathe, take a deep
Yeah.
breath. And then when you were talking about the center, like I always talk about, as a horse trainer, I'm trying to help the horse find its own center of balance. But as I've been going into more of this energetic world and learning about animal communication, I've really realized how important it is that also the human needs to find their center like energetically. You need to, yeah, draw all that stuff in so you can be really grounded and centered. And it just goes so far with your interactions with your horses, um, dogs, cats, whatever, but definitely for horses, they are so sensitive to that. Um,
Yeah.
do you, do you have anything else you'd want to add to our conversation today or any thoughts that I didn't ask you?
Yeah. Something that I've helped people with writing is finding their center if they're open to using their imagination when writing, is like imagining the light of you. Because a lot of the time they're either up in their chest or they're, above their body. People are just not in their body walking around. And
Mm.
so imagining just anchoring your own light, bringing that all through, your head, neck, down through your torso, through your whole body. And all the way down to the core of the earth so that you're anchored with the center of the earth. And um, I find that has been a little helpful. But sometimes too, the writing thing, watching other people ride, you can kind of see what's going on in their own life by the way that they ride.
Mm.
It's interesting.
Like
Like,
expound. Like what do you think?
um, so I was helping my friend with her horse, and just the way that she was writing, it was like, okay, what's going on with you and your mom right now? Because that's coming through in your writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's to leave everything at the door.
Yeah,
Your
definitely.
animals they deserve your presence because they're
Yeah.
giving you their full presence and attention. So,
I think that's probably a good place to end today's call, and that is so true. That's so true, right? Um, learning to be present in their presence,
mhm.
because they are always present with us.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you meeting me today. Where can people, um, how can they find you if they're interested in working with you? And like, do you have a website or
Yeah,
what's,
I have a website. It's lumiereconnections.com. I just really liked the name Lumiere from the candlestick in Beauty and the Beast. That's where
ah,
that came from. And it means light in French. And so connection, or we're connecting, we're all connecting through light, and
yeah.
light is information. So that's why it's called that. And so my contact information is on there. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. Well, I will put all that information in the show notes, and I appreciate you joining us today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joelle. That was such a fun conversation to have with you. And thanks, everyone, for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to like and share. And for those of you who would like to join us at My Magical Horse, go to www.patreon.com/My Magical Horse. Namaste, friends. We'll see you next time.